Good afternoon, Democrats. Today is the 15th day of March. Beware the Ides of March, but happy Wednesday. Just looking it up this morning, I was curious if I ever knew what Ides of March was. I didn't remember. And it was a holiday celebrated in ancient Rome, um, celebrating the 15th for a day, which was the final day to have your debts all cleared up. So, with tax season just around the corner, I think a lot of us may not be quite ready on today for that. But I'm glad that you're here this afternoon. We've got a topic that is very distressing. Something that I had to read several times to make sure I was reading it correctly. Should point out that Alicia Andrews is still traveling, and she will be back here on Monday. But until then, you and I will visit, and I'll try to bring you the news that I hope that you find interesting, useful, and helpful. And our guest today is going to, I think, really make a difference in the way that we understand something. Um, it's my privilege to welcome to the Chairs Daily Live someone who I have not interviewed before, but he has been on the program with Alicia a number of times, Representative Jacob Rosecrants. Good afternoon, Representative. How are you, sir? You're muted.
How about now?
Now I can hear you.
Good. All right, cool. Well, hey, thank you for having me on. I'm more than happy to shed some light on what occurred yesterday. Really, a lot of different things we could talk about, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here to have this conversation and just enjoying the nice weather. It's kind of spring break for us now after the last 2 days, which really just means catching up with everything that we weren't able to do since we've been at the Capitol like pretty much the whole entire last week and everything. So,
I
yep,
wish
happy to
I
have the
wish
conversation.
yesterday had been a spring break day, frankly, because the news that we're talking about, we're not being coy here. We just hadn't gotten around to describing it. The sick part is that Representative Rosecrants, many of your colleagues of the Republican persuasion have decided that it's perfectly okay to beat a disabled child, to uh, incorporate corporal punishment into their school days at the hands of teachers or other education administrators. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think that corporal punishment was still legal in Oklahoma for anyone. Now I find out that not only is it legal, it's going to remain legal to continue to physically hit a disabled student. What the hell?
Well, as in everything, there are some nuances. First of all, it leaves it up to the district to be able to do it, and many districts do not do this. So I've been teaching for 6 years, and there's no way that we would even look at corporal punishment. And of course, that's been in the inner city, South Oklahoma City public schools. That's not even on the agenda. We don't even. There is no corporal punishment. So, but it brings up kind of a larger question: why didn't this pass easily? Because we're just prohibiting the few districts that I guess do have this still. I think there's 60 of them or something like that. And what we're running into is what we run into just about every time at the Capitol, which is a rural urban suburban split. Now, that's not completely true if you look at the no votes on this. And for people that want to know what this is House Bill 1028 by a Republican, Representative Talley, and I co-authored the bill because it just makes perfect sense. I'm just like, let's go ahead and stamp this out. Because in my opinion, honestly, Scott, I don't think we should be doing corporal punishment at schools at all. And you heard like some of the weird arguments. They're like, it's a parent's choice. Okay, if it's a parent's choice, let the parent choose to do that at their house. It should be something. There's only like, I think you mentioned it. There's only like 8 states or something like that, all within our region that even have this as an option. Now, it's not as prevalent as you think, but apparently many folks who work across the aisle from me think it's a good thing. Now, I will say I've been having some Twitter conversations because that's a real thing. um, I don't like just posting things and then not talking about it afterwards. And so I have ran into some teachers who believe that it's taking away yet another tool in the toolbox. Not many, but a few. But for the most part, many, many, many teachers understand that that using physical punishment on children for the most part will not work. And again, if it did work, then why isn't it being done at home? So I guess the big question is then, if it is being done at home, then those parents probably have no problem with it being done at school. So I think that's the reason why we need the bill. Now, me personally would like to see it completely stomped out. Don't want it for any child, but especially this one, which Tally's been working on for quite a while with many different groups, to make sure that folks understand that this is for anybody who's disabled under IDEA, the federal law dealing with folks with disabilities. And as I talked to some of the no votes, and I got kind of heated, I'm not going to lie. I don't know what's wrong with me this year. I'm usually pretty calm and collected, but every now and again, some of the new freshmen, I'm just like, oh, what do you stop? That's not the button you want to push. And I got frustrated. And so I kind of listened to why they were hitting the red button. And some of them were just like, well, yeah, it's just I believe it's a parent's choice, this, that, and the other. And I was like, okay, but you're not seeing the larger picture here. I'm a former teacher. Let me have these conversations. And so after this failed, barely, might I add, the author did what's called capture it to where it can be heard again sometime before next Thursday. And he does plan on bringing it back up. And he does think that he has the votes to pass it. Now, what I recommend anybody to do, if you are a person that lives in a Republican district, I don't care if they voted yes or no on this, reach out to your state representative as soon as humanly possible and say, hey, here's why this is a bad idea to vote no on this, and educate these folks. Again, I know there's a lot of anger and vitriol. I felt it. I know. But that's the way you want to speak to, especially your representative, is in a respectful tone and be like, hey, I'm a teacher or whatever else. Here's the reasons why I think this is bad. Please vote for this to prohibit this bill, to prohibit corporal punishment for students that have disabilities.
Well, I read the bill in its entirety, and it's common sense legislation, and yeah. I know that that's in short supply right now, but it makes good moral sense. It makes good human sense. And I've got to tell you, when we start talking about parental responsibility, no, if you're telling your school it's okay to whip your kid, you are giving away your responsibility.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's kind of the argument that I had. But you heard some of the weird Bible thumping debates against this thing.
Yes.
And the author understood that this was coming. He knew it was going to be an uphill battle. He did. But he also felt like he had the votes to pass it, which he would have. There were quite a few folks missing yesterday. And that's another reason why I do believe that he will run it and it'll pass again. But it's going to have an uphill battle in the Senate, too, because I would say the majority of the senators rule, and that this is more of a rule mindset that some folks just can't seem to get past. But again, this shouldn't even be a question with children with disabilities. Like, it shouldn't even be. No. This should have flown through. This should have flown through. This should have been greens across the board and move on to the Senate, pass in the Senate, and move on to the governor who should have signed it. Because guys, this is 2023. This
exactly.
Is not 1823. This is not 1950 or whatever else people seem to think that it is. This is also flat out ignoring experts in the field and folks that are on the front line as well, teachers and folks like that are like, okay, get this, corporal punishment is proven to not lead to anything good. If anything, it exacerbates the issues you're trying to curb or whatever else. So,
but Jacob, isn't that the problem with so much of the legislation we're seeing? It's like expert schmexpert, you know.
Oh, I know.
They won't look at the science because we don't believe in science. They won't look at the respected authorities on these issues and how, I mean, the work is done if you just avail yourself of the information.
Right. No, yeah. And that's the big frustration, you know, I've taken a lot of time and built a lot of really good relationships with folks across the aisle. I'm not shy about that. That's the way that I work, you know, but it becomes very frustrating when I see even some quote unquote moderates who keep on voting against the people of Oklahoma with things like banning gender affirming care and things like that. I have conversations with these folks and they're against it, but they still hit that green button. And so or red button, depending upon what it is. I'm very, very frustrated this year because it's somehow become kind of in vogue to take these red meat ideas that used to not kind of have a chance to pass.
Yeah.
And, they were always authored. We always saw crazy bills authored. But these days, with the governor that we have, these bills aren't just red meat for their base. They actually become reality, and they are stifling progress here in Oklahoma on every level. Every level. I mean, we talk about companies not wanting to invest in Oklahoma, even though we're throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at them.
Yep.
Okay, fine. We're going to set up a commission to look at that and see what's going on. Well, I mean, I can already tell you what's going on. We're looked at as a backwoods, backwater place where nobody wants to come in and invest in our children because of the things that we are now legislating.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am, Mr. Pro Business. Hi, I love business. We want to make sure Oklahoma has good jobs, good paying jobs, and all of that. Well, then let's listen to the experts. Let's make sure that we're investing in our public schools, not vilifying them, not electing some.
Go ahead.
I won't do it.
It's okay. It's
no,
really it's
not electing some clown at the top of SDE who then works hand in hand with the governor to create a kangaroo court of a state school board. Mm-hmm. We are in major trouble here. And do you want to know why, Scott? The reason why is because we have some of the lowest voter turnout in the United States of America. Period. There you go. Why did recreational marijuana not pass? It's because people didn't show up to vote. Now, that was purposeful. That was definitely the governor knowing what he was doing by putting that election on a day where nothing else was going on. That's classic voter suppression tactics, and we knew it when he did it. So that did not come as much as a surprise, but it's across the board. I mean, the reason why I'm going to struggle out here every other year in my campaigns, well, we actually have good turnout out here, but that's probably because I have to run every other year. And so it's like, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, it's like they get the knock. It's like, oh, no, not you again.
Yeah, I promise. It's what happens. That's why I was happy to get some new precincts in redistricting. So I was like, oh, finally, I can talk to some new folks. But yeah, no. The reason why Oklahoma is getting very, very close to what I would say a Gilead. It's a fictional place, but why it's becoming close to that is because of low voter turnout. And you almost can't blame some folks because they feel like their votes don't matter. Well, guess what? That's the way Republicans felt back in the day when the Democrats were in charge of everything. You had to be basically a Democrat to get anything done. Well, that's the way it is. It's flipped now. So what my big hope is that we realize, yes, we may be in the minority, but we're not as much of a minority as what people think. We're not. We just need to make sure and take the time and the effort. And again, I do it out here as best I can, even though I have an election every other year, to get likely Democrat voters to register to vote and then to get them out. That's what every dollar needs to be spent on at this particular time, because then you can start us seeing flipping some of those Oklahoma City or Tulsa seats that really shouldn't have conservative representation, but they do. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can start seeing something on that level. But I think what we're kind of living through is that basically the fear that is used by these folks who know that fear gets their base out. They keep doing it because they know it keeps working. So we've got to look at that too as Democrats and figure out, okay, how do you battle back against that? But the key is, if we're not going out to vote, then none of this is a moot point.
And I'm so glad you said that, because our chair every day comes before all of us and talks about how elections have consequences. And that includes if you don't vote. If you don't vote, then you're going to get what you've got. And so
Ryan Walters is what you get when you don't vote.
That's exactly right.
And he's horrible. Okay.
And this is only 10 weeks into the job, and he has done a yeoman's job of just breaking everything.
The only blessing I'd say is the fact he's so incompetent that it's almost like not landing, because you can see even from folks across the aisle that are in the education world, they're like, hey, buddy, calm down. Even old Governor Stitt was like, well, I don't really agree with what he said there. And so you're just kind of like, well, you guys let this guy loose. You empowered him. So here's what you get. The only problem is that he's at the head of one of the major agencies of the state, and folks elected him to do it.
Yes, they did. And he's calling it a mandate for vouchers. Nothing could be further from the truth. And
absolutely, that's a flat out lie. Yep.
But I just want to circle back just for a moment to this particular bill. It's troubling on so many levels, as you pointed out. It's just wrong. And then we have the age-old problem here in Oklahoma where people are quick to whip out their Bible to justify their bad actions. And if you're going to read it all. If you're going to do it all. And so that means,
part of me wishes I had the time, Scott, to go through the Bible and find rebuttals for all the BS that flops out of people like Representative Olson's mouth. And I just don't have the time. I really, right when he got elected, I was like, oh, dang, no, I know something in the New Testament's going to say that's just stupid. And I need to be able to do that, but I just haven't had enough time. And also, I don't like bringing religion into what I'm doing at the Capitol anyway.
Let's be honest. When someone makes up their mind, you can say to them whatever you want. You can show them every chapter and verse, and it's not going to change anything.
No.
You can talk to them about selling off their daughters, and they're not going to be willing to do that. But
will they, though, Scott? I sometimes kind of wonder about some of those folks I work with.
I'm glad you said that. That was perfect cover for what I was thinking, so I appreciate that. Yeah. My friend, we are just about out of time, but I wanted to have you on today to explain to folks just more of it's unthinkable is what it is. It's just unthinkable that we're going to continue beating disabled kids when we have a way to say, no, stop. And we've chosen not to do that. So I hope it comes back next week. If you will keep me advised as to if and when and how that's going to happen, then we will make sure to get the message out, because yesterday we put out an appeal for people to call their legislators, and you've done the same thing today. And we have to do that. We've got to communicate our appreciation when there's something to be appreciated, but our concern. And when we are concerned about something, and this is one that every decent thinking person should care about. Absolutely.
And just to give you a little bit of heads up, we will have long days next week. So that means that we're going to be on the floor pretty much from 10 a.m. till late on Monday, then from 9 a.m. till late, all the way up until Thursday, most likely. So just letting you know, our offices will still be able to take what you say, even though we're on the floor. And if you're at the Capitol, you can actually come up to the fourth floor and request us off the floor. So if you want to speak to your representative or anybody else, and you have the time and the effort, and you can come up to the Capitol, feel free to do that. And then, like I said, you could say, you go to the little desk and you say, I would like to speak to Representative Rosecrants. They send that to me, and then boom, then you have that. So that's just to give a little heads up for folks whenever you're trying to, advocate for or against something.
But before I let you go, I just want to share. Mitch Leonard has a quote here, because you said that you wish you could just go through and find everything that rebuts everything in the Bible. I think he pretty well sums it up. Here's your verse: "The greatest commandment is love thy neighbor, and that said, religion is specifically removed from government in America."
Boom! Like, that's mic drop.
Yep.
Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Thank you. And just don't give up the good fight. We appreciate you, and we count on you every day. So thank you for everything you're doing.
You bet. I'll keep up the fight. Thank you. Right. And you guys too.
Talk to you soon. Well, friends, I hope that you learned something today. I did. And I'm also even angrier than I was this morning. So I've made my calls, and I'm going to encourage you to make yours too, because beating a disabled child just doesn't make sense in anybody's world. All right, that's it. Our time together today is up, but we'll be back tomorrow at 4:15, and I hope that you'll make plans to join us then. Until then, take good care, and we'll see you tomorrow.